Caleb Williams took part in USC's Pro Day earlier in the week, and now the presumptive #1 overall pick next month's draft visiting Hallis Hall next week. The Bears, about 10 days ago, traded quarterback Justin Fields to the Steelers, leaving little doubt as to who their QB1 will be next season. Over at Pro Football Focus, and former Heisman winner atop their big board, ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake May. In a recent article, wrote about Caleb, quote, "This is a quarterback with franchise-changing talent that is worthy of a #1 overall selection." More now from the profile on Caleb Williams. Williams, an incredibly talented player with the natural gifts even other previous QB1s did not have. His issues are more than a lack of consistency than ability in any other area. All right, let's bring in Sam Monson, lead NFL analyst from Pro Football Focus here. Sam, great to have you on the program. I know you guys do up to 3-year grades on some of these players, but if I just focus on the year-to-year, the last two for Caleb Williams here, what do you guys attribute the ever so slight downgrade to from his last two out there in Trojan land?
Yeah, basically all the data we have on Caleb Williams is phenomenal grading each season of his career in college. The difference between last year and the year before that was basically a big spike in turnover-worthy plays, those kind of mistakes with the football that should result in turnovers, throwing the ball to defenders, that kind of thing. Whether or not they're actually caught, we track the mistake, the severity of the downgrade within our process. And Caleb Williams' rate of those plays last season spiked. It more than doubled from the year before. So the previous season, we had looked at his tape and there were all these Patrick Mahomes type plays on there. And like Patrick Mahomes, he was getting away with the traditionally, the things you're not supposed to do. He was putting the ball back across his body into tight windows and getting away with it and making it work every single time. This past season, he stopped getting away with it, and he made some of those throws and just got caught out and put the ball in harm's way a little bit more than previously. So I think that's really all we're talking about, is he's got the ceiling, and we've seen the high end of his play. It looks like Patrick Mahomes, and then last season we saw it doesn't always work just like that, and that's why Patrick Mahomes is who he is, and other quarterbacks are not quite able to do that most of the time.
Love the context with that number, again, going from 91.8 to 90.3, still fantastic. Get back to the big board. 2 of the top 5 are wide receivers. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. We just saw Neighbors run something like 4.35 at the Pro Day, which is a number that people like to point to. In terms of your guys' grade, how close is it between these two guys?
It is very close, and really it's just about body of work. Both those guys have got PFF grades above 90. That's that elite level that we're talking about. Neighbors actually has the highest single season grade of either of them, but Marvin Harrison did it for longer, and this season he showed that he's kind of quarterback proof, right? He lost CJ Stroud, obviously an elite level quarterback in his own right, and the guy that replaced him at Ohio State very much was not at that level, and certainly cost Marvin Harrison Jr. an awful lot of production this season, and yet he was still able to put up an 89.9 grade, basically right there with that 90 cutoff level, that 90 elite level we're talking about. So Neighbors was able to have a better season, but obviously Jaden Daniels, his quarterback, may go top 3, may go even higher than that. He was playing with an elite level passer, and Harrison didn't have that benefit this season.
Sam, what constitutes an elite corner for you guys? And what about Iowa cornerback there, Cooper DeJean?
Yeah, cornerback is an interesting position, certainly when you look at PFF grading, because it's very volatile year to year. The grading is not necessarily consistent every single season. We see that in the NFL as well. Even guys that are incredible, arguably the better corners in the league, they'll have down seasons, and their grade will fluctuate because they're at the mercy of the offense. They're at the mercy of receivers, of quarterbacks that they play, and whether or not they're going to get targeted is a big part of it as well. So a guy like Cooper DeJean from Iowa, he's had really good grading for a couple of seasons now, maybe not every season at that elite level, but you start looking at some of the advanced metrics then as well as the grading, and he just hasn't allowed an awful lot of production into his coverage at all. An NFL passer rating below 50 in each of the last 2 seasons. His run defense is really good as well, probably the best of any of these prospects. And his size, his versatility, I think is a little bit like Brian Branch a year ago as well, who also had consistently excellent PFF grading in college, a guy that can play maybe any position within a secondary.
If we get to the tight end position and focus on Brock Bowers, a lot of people are really excited about his prospects. I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts. If we just sort of even recent comps from last year, when you have a Dalton Kincaid, you have a Sam Laporta, you got a Musgrave there, where does Bowers stack up with some of those guys, just to kind of give us some context about how good he might be?
Yeah, I mean, he's maybe the best tight end prospect we've seen come into the league from a receiving point of view since PFF has been grading college football way back in 2014. He's got an incredible tool set. He's been really a sort of matchup weapon for that offense at Georgia, where they'll move him all over the formation, line him up in the slot, line him out wide. And he's not like a lot of these receiving tight ends that cannot block. His blocking grades in college have been pretty impressive as well. He isn't just a receiving option. He can absolutely be a significant part of your run game as a blocker, but as a run after the catch specialist, as a guy that's just an incredible receiving weapon, his PFF grading is as good as anybody we've seen over a consistent period of time in the SEC, against top competition.
Just to be clear, I want to wrap this up because maybe I didn't go back far enough. So better grades than Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, OJ Howard, and the like? That's what the grade is for Bowers?
Certainly when you start looking at overall body of work. There are guys that have had single seasons that are better than him, but the overall body of work for Bowers is absolutely as good as anybody we've seen. All
right. Sam Monson joining us here in HQ Spotlight. Certainly appreciate it. Look forward to having you much more as we get ready for the draft. Here's that PFF big board once again. Wide receivers are heavy. They're deep in this class. We'd even talk about Rome Odunze out of Washington, and didn't have time, unfortunately, to talk about Byron Murphy II coming in the top 10 on their big board. In terms of the quarterback rankings, Williams, May, Daniels, McCarthy, Nix over Penix Jr., which is interesting. That list coming from a guy that joined us not too long ago, also from PFF, Trevor Sikkema.